But this is also at the same time, you're dealing with that generation older than us.
Yep.
Do you have $10,000 to $15,000 a month to pay for nursing home care if it gets, no?
Absolutely not.
This is the true story of four Gen X classmates.
Reuniting decades later in a rented beach house to share what really happens.
When aging parents, estate planning, leaving behind a legacy, and nursing home care collide.
A nurse, a zoning and planning employee with nursing home experience, a banker, and an estate planning attorney, talking about the stuff nobody told us about, but everyone needs to hear.
This is Gen X Conversations.
All right, so let's talk a little bit on the care end and what, particularly Lynn and Kim, what have you seen in nursing homes in terms of the family and the costs and all that other stuff? When people are first coming into a nursing home, did it look like the family was really prepared for this? Or is it just like, oh my God, what's going on?
I think most of them within a year were on some type of Medicaid, or I don't think they had the finances. Most of them came from either a hospital or living with the family. Obviously the ones that had family that visited regularly did better. I always felt like those were the ones that had more money. They seemed like they had nicer things and stuff like that, but most of them, in my experience, 90% of the patients there were basically destitute. You know, they were getting whatever they were getting from the state. We had my grandmother who had put the house many years prior in my uncle's name, so they couldn't go after that asset, but she had gotten, and this is going back to like the 80s, early 90s and stuff, like $65 a month to be able to spend on whatever she wanted.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, well, she must get other things. No, but that was the cost of her care or whatever. I mean, that's for anything extra that she would want, and clothing, anything, that's all she had.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I see a lot of patients too that are on the lower financial end. So oftentimes you would have a patient come in to a nursing home or whatever for rehab, and say their rehab has ended 6 weeks. Now the insurance company is not going to pay anymore because that's according to the insurance company, that's as long as you need to recover from that particular issue. So if they're not able to go back home and they need to stay because maybe rehab wasn't enough or it's just not realistic, that's when the insurance usually kicks over and they go on, the Medicare takes over. And then they're just straight Medicare, which means they're there. The nursing home gets their check every month, and like Lynn said, they get a small stipend that they can use to go to the hairdresser, play bingo. Some facilities have little stores, like convenience stores. You can go buy your toiletries and stuff like that, and but it's not a lot. It's not a lot at all. If they need clothing or anything like that, usually they count on family members to be bringing those in either as gifts or just, you need clothes. But oftentimes you would see patients that their family members aren't bringing anything in, and you're going into the deceased patient that donated their clothes because the family donated the clothes, and you're going in there and that's what you're getting them dressed with.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sad. It's sad and it's difficult, and if you don't have any plan, this is what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you familiar with what the usual quote Medicaid limits are for skilled nursing care? What you get to keep, and they'll still let you get Medicaid. No.
It's kind of like a gray area for me, because
Well, and the other thing, because you're doing a lot of in-home care, that may be technically Medicaid, but one of the different programs for having the care in the home versus being in the nursing home.
correct. Yeah.
In the nursing home, you can keep up to $2,000 in liquid assets in your checking account, usually. That's it. You can have one vehicle, doesn't matter if you can drive or not, because the presumption is, oh, well, that vehicle is there to take you to doctor's appointments and whatnot if a family member is gonna do that. And you get to keep your primary residence and still qualify for Medicaid. But there are lots of catches around that too. There's an equity limit. Now, this equity limit in North Carolina that I'm about to give, it might be far more up here, Massachusetts, Rhode Island area, 714,000 in equity. There's some really small properties worth way more than that, depending on where it is and what the neighborhood is and whatnot. Oh, they'll let you keep it though. But what they don't really say is after you've qualified for Medicaid and Medicaid's spending money out on you, after you die, they'll put a lien against the property, and now that house cannot be sold until the lien's paid. So it's like, well, they're still losing the house. So those are the limits that people are dealing with. And oftentimes I have clients say, well, okay, should we get long-term care insurance? But they're having the discussion with me after they got the diagnosis. And I'm, okay, I have to tell them, this is like calling up your insurance person and say, yeah, I need to up the coverage on my homeowner's insurance in case there's a fire. Oh, well, why? Because my kitchen's currently on fire. No, at that point it's too late because you're not gonna pass the health tests and the other things like that. So getting that type of long-term care insurance becomes difficult by the time people are addressing it, because like we've been talking about here, they don't address it until it's almost too late. Mm-hmm. Now, you can gift stuff to people ahead of time. Like Barbara, you were talking about, or actually you all might at one point or another might have been talking about giving the house away. It was you who said you were the house got gifted to an uncle and so it was off the table. Mm-hmm. All right. There's a 5-year look back on that. There are a lot of people who think, oh, well, I'm going to need to go to a nursing home next month. Let me give the house to my kids and transfer all these accounts and whatnot, and then I'll be broke and Medicaid will pay for it. No. Mm-hmm. A lot of other people don't realize that that transfer could actually have a quote penalty of greater than 5 years. So, okay, between the house and the investments and the other stuff that you transfer, they calculate how many months you're quote ineligible after you apply. It could be 7.5, 8 years of ineligibility.
If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel.
And now what do? Well, I already gave all that stuff out 2 months ago. Well, you either have to get it all back and figure something else out, or you're gonna have to go to court, and that's not a cheap process either. It's like, okay, well, you're stuck if you don't know what these rules are. So planning that out ahead of time makes a lot of sense. I mean, right now, Lynn, you're dealing with this with your mother-in-law. She's just selling the house. Now she's gonna have her investments plus whatever's in the house. Do you know about what that value is gonna be? Is it gonna be enough to sustain her?
Value of the house is probably between $400,000 and $500,000. I have no idea what she has in cash assets. Okay. I do know she does have some debt, so again, you know, you're kind of balancing this with will we even have enough money to pay off what she owes when she passes, you know, and I'm taking her word for it. That her financial advisor said you're all set for the rest of your life, which, as you explained, is not necessarily the case.
When I hear financial advisors say, "Oh, you're set for the rest of your life based on the assets and what it's growing and what your income is," that's if you're living at home and you have your normal and regular bills. Mm-hmm. If your normal and regular bills each month is $2,000, I'm just throwing a number out there. You think you can get nursing home care for $2,000 a month? No, I don't know what it is up in this area, but it's generally, if it's private pay, it's somewhere between 10 and maybe 15,000 in North Carolina. It's probably a lot more here. And so the quote, you don't have to worry about it, means you've got enough of a base of liquid assets that you can just have the income paying out that 10 to 15,000 a month without decreasing the principal or decreasing it too much. Most people don't have that type of stuff. They don't have that level of assets to kick off the income in order to pay that. So it's then, well, then what do you do? Well, you got to do this planning. There's a lot of different loopholes, but do you see the generation above us doing a lot of that planning ahead of time? No. So we're going to get stuck with all these other loopholes in financial situations. Probably at the time, we're still trying to make sure we've got enough for retirement. And Kim and Lynn, like, your kids are still, they're out. Well,
Our kids are
at
still at home.
they're
yeah.
still at home, but they're adults.
Yes.
Do they have enough money on their own to just go out and buy a home?
Not right now. Maybe in a couple of years.
Maybe. But this is also at the same time, you're dealing with that generation older than us.
Yep.
Do you have $10,000 to $15,000 a month to pay for nursing home care if it gets no? So yeah, that's just emphasizing the importance of making sure that this planning gets done.
Right.
Have either of you seen any kind of success stories, and I guess Barbie too, with the banking, and have you had these situations where people have come in, okay, we got to take care of nursing home care, either for me, for my spouse, or for my parents? What have you seen in your experience where they're like, yeah, we're ready?
My experience, most people aren't ready.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
The majority of people are not ready. They don't even know. And I don't know if it's the generation, you know, like our parents' generation. Everything's a big secret. Nobody wants to tell anybody anything.
That's the main reason.
And that's where we have the problems, because after they pass, all these secrets, you know.
Somebody else is gonna get. I'm
Right.
sure that's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and this isn't something that we would have been privy to. Maybe our parents' generation were privy to this, but it was really prior to the Great Depression. Families used to just be very open and talk about this planning and how do we plan this together. Families of multiple generations were planning their stuff together to minimize whatever the taxes would be. And it's like, yeah, nobody's keeping a secret. That Great Depression hit, people lost so much money and now they're embarrassed that they had money and lost it. But that whole attitude of, yeah, you don't talk about money, that's where it's coming from.
Right.
Interesting.
Yep.
So it's all those years, like almost 100 years ago,
Yep.
it was, yeah, we talk about it, and then the Depression happened. No, we don't talk about that stuff.
Yep.
But like you said, we're the ones who are going to be caught with having to deal with all this stuff.
I don't know if Kim's felt this way, but I felt there was two other reasons that it's an impediment to talking about planning, estate planning, is they feel like they're gonna lose control, like if they know what I have,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
you know, that's, I don't wanna put it in this thing
Mhm.
that I don't have control of it, or that I can't change my mind.
Yeah.
And the last part, and it's kind of an irrational thought, I don't wanna talk about it because it just brings into awareness that, you know, when you start talking 5 or 10 years to people that are in the 70s, 80s, they might not have that, and it's uncomfortable to talk about.
Right.
But it's not gonna get more comfortable as time goes by, and you always say later, and there's only, you know, it's a hard thing to say, there's not that much later, and like you said, the 5-year look back, the sooner you can do this, the better. But again, they
Yeah.
feel like they're hastening their death, they're
Yep.
hastening loss of control of their money,
Yep.
and they've been brought up with the mentality of it's secretive and it's almost shameful to talk about money, whether you have a lot of it or a little bit, there's shame on both sides,
Yep.
you know? And it's very hard getting through those deeply ingrained thoughts with family members to say, seriously, let's sit down and do it. And when you do it, it almost feels like this thing, you just want to take all my money and my stuff. It's like you're offering me stuff and I don't want it. Not to be mean. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that what you have, one, is enough to take care of you. And two, if you want to leave the grandkids stuff or us stuff or whatever, that you'll have as much of your stuff to be able to, as much of your cash assets to be able to do that by planning this way.
Right.
But just can't quite break through that barrier of them.
Yeah.
They'll change the subject, they'll tell you stories, and we talk in circles,
Yep.
and it never gets to.
And it never gets resolved.
Which is, I find, helpful if you had here's a series of questions, fill these out so we know where everything is, and then make a decision. You wanna go this way or that way, and you protect it, you never have to worry about it again.
Right.
Which a lot of this information is at freemedicaidcourse.com in my book, the long-term care solution, which also has the questionnaire. Actually, this is, seriously though, this is a tool. There is the questionnaire that we use before we're going to talk about any kind of, we call it care assistance planning, whether it's veterans benefits, Medicaids for skilled nursing care, other programs or whatnot. It's very detailed and even goes into what are your usual monthly expenses for certain items and whatnot. Look, even if you're never gonna work with me, that questionnaire kind of gets you prepared to look at everything that any Medicaid planner is gonna wanna look at to make sure. Well, why is it so detailed? Because it matters. It really does. Well, I've got $1 million worth of stuff. Well, okay, are you renting an apartment, you have $1 million in stocks and bank accounts, or do you have a $700,000 house and $300,000? Because one's exempt, one isn't. One we can do this technique with the real estate that we can't do with the money. It all matters. Oh, well, what about the expenses and the income and that other stuff? Well, it matters what your income is, because whoever's getting the care, all of that's going to the nursing home first before Medicaid picks up the difference. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the spouse making for that? Oh, they're on their own unless they fall between a certain guideline numbers, and then you can get more of your spouse. It all matters. Every bit of it matters. And this is kind of the frustrating thing. We're talking about the parents are giving up control to let us work with them on this stuff. But you do have to give up control if you want to actually preserve some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. I end up going through every year, every other year with my clients who come in every year for their annual review for estate planning. All right, let me talk about long-term care. Traditional long-term care insurance, for most people, forget it. It's insanely expensive. It didn't used to be. But you go back 30 years or more, there used to be a couple of hundred companies selling the traditional long-term care insurance where, okay, you pay your premiums quarterly or monthly or annually or whatnot. And then if you need nursing home care, okay, you're gonna get it and here's your limits and whatnot. Well, what if I never need nursing home care? Do I get money back? No. That, again, like auto insurance.
That's the point, you're right.
Those companies got a couple of big things wrong. The first thing they got wrong is they anticipated a dropout rate. And it's for the insurance companies, oh, that's free money. People are gonna pay for 6-7 years, and then they're just gonna say, well, I'm not paying this anymore. That happens a lot, but not with long-term care. They were afraid to give it up. So they kept the policies and then eventually made the claims on it. Oh, we weren't expecting that. And then the other thing was the average nursing home stay 25, 30 years ago was 6 months. And they said either you're getting better and getting out or you pass on. Most of the time it's you pass on. So the average stay was 6 months. Well, we're getting all these medical improvements. It's either going to stay the same or get better. All of the healthcare advances were around keeping people physically healthy. So they were more like my grandmother, walking 10 miles around the facility, and she was kept physically healthy, but she still needed 24/7 care that these policies were obligated to pay for. The average nursing home stay now is at 23 or 24 months. So that's quadruple what they were anticipating. We're only down to about 3 companies still issuing new policies like that because they were the only ones who really got the numbers right. Now it's, okay, people were pissed off that they could pay all these years and not get anything. And they couldn't make the numbers work this way. So now there's like life insurance and annuities that have specific types of benefits attached to them. So if you never use it, oh, it's still life insurance. Oh, it's still an asset that can pass on to the next generation. But if you do need long-term care, oh, it can draw from this, it can borrow from this at reduced interest rates and whatnot. And so it's kind of doing double duty there. So, oh, I don't use it. Yeah, you're still getting passed on to the family. If you do need it, all right, that's what it's there for. Borrow the entire thing out against that policy. So by the time you pass on, well, okay, it did its job. Your kids aren't getting anything, but it took care of your long-term care. Again, by the time my clients are coming to me, you know, when I'm explaining this in that annual review meeting, they're like, oh, well, okay. But by the time people are coming to me, most of the time, yeah, I got the bad, you know, I've got early stages dementia. The doctor said so, or my wife or my husband, they've got it. What do we do? Well, you can't get those policies anymore. Now we get to the legal end of things. And this is where I tell them we have what we call the two-trust solution. There's the irrevocable property trust, the irrevocable family trust. You take anything you're gonna wanna protect and put it in here. You put the real estate in the property trust, you put the money in the family trust, and then 5 years after you transfer that in, all that's off the table for Medicaid. And my clients who are used to revocable living trust go, oh, that's great, let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, okay, here's the very big catch. You're putting that in there, you can't be the trustee anymore.
Right.
You're no longer in control. All your money is there. Usually it's one of the kids who's the trustee. And we can talk about co-trustees and all that crap separately, but no, one person at a time. They are actually the beneficiary of that trust until you're dead. Then it has to get distributed according to your state wishes. So technically they could say, I'm not giving you any of this money, and they can take the money out, put it in their pocket, and walk away. Oh, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to do that. Yeah. But if they give up that kind of control, now suddenly, well, the trusted kid, they can take money out, put it into their own checking account, and then turn around and pay for things for you. So it's still off Medicaid's radar. When you get past that 5-year mark, it's fine. But it's that loss of control.